Welcome to this Ready to Craft. In this video, I will show you how to create a festive piñata using Readi-Board. To begin, I'm going to create my sides. I've created a template of map points, which I'm going to use as a guide. I'll make this template available in the video's description. Be sure to measure from the upper left corner of your board. If you're making your own shape, keep in mind that straight edges are going to be easier to work with later on. After I've gotten all my points mapped out, simply connect the dots. Then, with a new blade and my hobby knife, I'm going to cut the shape out. Set aside this excess for later, we'll be using it. Once that has been cut out, I'm going to use it to trace my other side. And cut it out. I have the two pieces that I cut away handy. I need to decide how wide I want my piñata to be. This may vary depending on what you plan on putting inside. I settled on 5 inches wide. I'm going to cut as many 5-inch wide strips from my excess foam board as I can. Before I start assembling, I'm going to show you a little trick I like to use with my tape. I'm going to mark the center of my tape roll in a few points. Then, using my hobby knife, I'm going to cut down the center. This is because I don't need the tape to be quite so wide. You can see along the edge of my table, I've pre-ripped a bunch of tape strips. While you work on the sides, keep in mind how the foam board pieces meet one another. To create some of my sides, I can create a bend in my foam board. To do so, we're only going to cut through the top layer of paper, then carefully bend it until the foam snaps. It's still fitting a little awkwardly, so I'm going to take out a little bit of the foam. I'm holding my blade at an angle as I cut. This allows the joint a little bit more freedom of movement. I'm going to label this piece so I don't get it confused with any other ones. Continue plotting out all your edges. The very final piece that I want to plot out as the one for my back. This is because I have to create an opening so that we can stuff the piñata later. I'm going to cut 3 of the edges. And score the inside. This will create a flap that we can later push down. I'm also going to create my hanging points. I'm inserting my hobby knife blade and creating a small X. Be careful of your fingers as you work like this. I have some string that I'm going to feed through. To make it easier on myself, I've taken a paper clip and bent it open slightly. This gives me a little hook that I can push through the foam board and pull the string through with. To make sure it's really secure, I've included 2 strings. I'll tie those up to keep them out of the way while I work. Now we can begin assembly. I'm going to complete one side first and then move on to the next. You can include more or less tape strips, depending on how easy you'd like the piñata to break. You may have to make a few adjustments to the edges as you work. Notice that I'm not attaching the top edge till the very end. Make sure that you attach the feet on extremely well. All of the weight of your candy is going to be against them. I'm actually going to stuff some tissue paper into the feet to take up some of the space. Then I'll move on to attaching the top piece. You can see I've added a tail to my flap to make it easier to open and close. The tape wasn't holding as securely as I'd like, so I'm going to use some strips of scrap paper and some white glue to fortify my edges. Apply them similar how you would paper mache. While I set that aside to dry, I'm going to begin cutting my tissue paper. I'm marking every 2 inches. Then cutting the strips. Once all the strips have been cut out, I'm going to organize them by color. To make them a little easier to work with, I'm going to cut the strips in half. Then cut the fringe. Make sure you don't go all the way across the strip. Finally, we can begin decorating. You don't need to use a lot of glue for each strip because the tissue paper is so thin. This part can be a little tedious, but keep going. All of your effort will be worth it. You can see I've loosely marked where I want my different color stripes to be. For these top edges, you can fold the strip over to make the fringe slightly shorter. The fringe is a little long in some places, so I'm going to trim it down. To create the tail, I'm going to use a piece of paper as a base. I fold it in half to make sure that both sides are symmetrical. going to mark where my overlap is. This is so I don't add tissue paper to the places they're going to be glued down. I'm also making sure I leave enough room at the top to attach my tail to the piñata. Decide what order you want your colors and start attaching them. Roll the tail back up and glue the edges together. I'm using a little bit of tape to hold it in place. I'm also going to give my piñata a cute little bridle. To do this, I'm going to cut some strips out of some black paper. Then I'll use some tape to attach them to one another. To attach the tail, I'm using some white glue and a couple staples, just to be sure. The final step is to give your piñata a good fluff. If you try this craft out, we'd love to see it. Our social media links can be found in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If there's a foam board craft that you would like to see a ready to craft of, let us know in the comments.